Let's do a podcast, baby.
Insurance companies are crooks. You want a policy or do you want a partner? You need a customized policy, just like I do. Right? I take people on my four-wheelers. If I insure a four-wheeler, it's a personal policy, excludes business.
I don't know if you could talk about the celebrity's name, but we talked about a $4 million deductible, and it's on a $30 or $40 million home. And right. If they have a $4 million claim, she's
pays
out
the
of
whole
pocket
thing.
$4 million, right?
I said to this famous person, and I do a lot of them, I insure Drake and all kinds of people. $4 million deductible doesn't do you any good. Everybody will benefit, and the lawyers will lose if we get rid of deductibles.
Dude, we all have the best time ever to start a small business.
If I'm not going to be 100% in, I'm not going to do it.
Come on, man, just be yourself.
Yeah,
and just show up as yourself.
If you don't realize what I'm really about, I'm about freedom, family, and my country.
Rick, welcome to the set.
Thank you.
I appreciate you flying in. I know you're a busy man running around the country.
Trying to do her.
It looks fun. It looks fun what you're doing.
Well, in the mornings, I'm not sure it's much fun. At night, it's always fun, right?
So, Utah guy, born and raised, Salt Lake City. Tell me a little bit about your childhood. Let people know a little bit more about Rick Lindsey Young.
So my old man was in the insurance business, and I started working in it when I was 7, stuffing envelopes. And he was a sports guy because he grew up homeless. His parents were alcoholics, and he grew up at the boys' club. So he thought kids should be playing sports, and I agree with that. Today, the whole sports thing with dudes playing with girls, and everybody gets a trophy, and that's not the way. Life's supposed to be a struggle, right? And so sports teaches you that. When you lose, you're sad. When you win, you're happy. And if you're always happy because you get a trophy, whether you win or lose, that creates cupcakes. So, I grew up, when I got out of school, the last day of school, the first day I had off, I was in some sports camp until the day we went back in school. And then all school year, I played sports. So needless to say, I wasn't a great student. I was like, I don't need to know any of this shit, right? I'm going to be a professional football player. And then I started playing hockey when I was 12, which to me, I was better at it than any other sport. So obviously, I'm not a great golfer, so I don't really like golf. I can go golf. But when you're good at shit, that's when you like it. So 79, I tried out for the Olympic hockey team, which was the year I graduated from high school, but I wasn't allowed to go to graduation. They said, here's your diploma, do not come back.
That was better than me.
Yeah. And I didn't want to go. I'm not a suit or a tuxedo guy, so anytime I can get out of dressing up, I'm good with it. So anyway, when I got cut for the Olympic hockey team, I was like petrified that I was a dumbass, and I started working in the insurance business. And I had learned from my dad since I was 7, stuffing envelopes. You don't know the details, but at least you know what's going on, and you learn when you don't know you're learning. When I was 12, I went to Evel Knievel's jump of the Snake Canyon. And I was right fucking there with the ramp and the rocket and Evel Knievel, and again, I learned a lot there as a 12-year-old. And then here I am, 19, and I got to pay for my kids and be a provider, and I was scared shitless. That's what motivated me. People say, do what you love. I say, fuck that. Yeah. Do what you can be the most productive at, because now you're a responsible adult with kids, and you have to do your job. So
I want to stop you real quick. You said about 3 minutes ago, learning the hard shit in sports, learning that not everybody gets a trophy, working through adversity.
Right.
In your childhood, what was something that you went through that you could still kind of think back to today and say, hey, that taught me a great lesson? Because I fully agree. People are very soft on their kids, and I love my wife, even my wife at times, because we want to be so protective. We want to give them the best environment. Sometimes they need to learn to like fall down and get hurt and pick themselves up. Tell me something you remember as a kid.
I mean, I have fucking 1,000 stories, dude.
Give me the best ones.
Bottom line is, you know, as a parent, everybody wants to be their kid's friend. Right? It's like, oh, you know, I'm friends with my kid. And I'm like, I'm not supposed to be their friend. I'm their fucking dad, right? And so if you make life easy for your kids, you're not doing them any favors, right? They need to go play sports, get dirty, crash, get hurt, and you don't run to them every time. And as a parent, it's natural to do that, right? When your kid gets hurt, you go help them. But I would say that, you know, I have brothers, and my dad was an awesome dad and taught me everything I know, but I would never take a problem of mine to my dad, right? I don't know if I would say I was scared of him, but I respected him enough that if I fucked up and I was in trouble, I took care of it myself. And, you know, I think, again, most kids that I know, my brothers, which I was trying to avoid saying, but I can't, you know, they gave my dad every fucking problem he had, and he made them soft, right? Again, today, they're adults and they have their life, but he didn't do them any favors like being a safety net, right? If you're flying without a safety net, if you're a trapeze circus artist without a safety net, you're going to take it more serious. If you always know that somebody's going to handle your problem, you act differently. And at some point, you actually start playing that to your advantage. Now it's like their problem. You don't have any problems. And so as a parent, I think not only do you hurt your kid, but you hurt yourself and your relationship with them. So, now again, if my kids aren't happy with me, I'm sorry, right? I'm not your friend. I'm your dad.
We talked about this earlier because it was a fear of mine of like, hey, I grew up, you know, my parents worked hard. They were great people, but I definitely didn't have much, which I felt drove me. Do you think it was something in you that was like competitive or a killer instinct to like not bring that problem to your dad and like prove to him that you could handle it on your own? And do you think maybe your brothers didn't have that? Not that they're not great people, but they didn't maybe have that instinct?
I think it's respect for my dad, right? I was scared of him, you know, and your dad, he's big and he's like Superman, and, you know, I didn't want to disappoint him. And so to me, I think it's a combination of both where, you know, and the way you learn is dealing with your own problems, right? That's reality. If you're depending on other people to solve your problems, you're living in la-la land. And, you know, eventually your parents are going to die and you're not going to have that safety net. And so preparing your kids for reality is your job as a parent, right? And I think that's a tough, fine line, right? Yep. But, you know, and I do the best as I can as a dad, but it's really up to them. My kids hate it when I tell this story, but I always say, we were out at the ranch when I first bought it, and it was a piece of fucking dirt, right? No water, no nothing, river running through it. We're plowing up fields trying to create what I have today. And we, you know, I was stupid at that point. We were like plowing, you know, just trying to get a little strip of grass. And now I got 2 40-acre fields, and I go there and I'm like, this is fucking cool. But if I take people there, they're like, you know, they don't know how much work went into it. But when we're out there working with the kids and we're plowing the field and trying to get the water to flood the field, and they're like, yeah, I'm tired. And they're like, Dad, I'm like, if you were a pioneer, you would fucking die.
Yeah.
Right? It'd be over. I mean, life to me is supposed to be a struggle. You know, nobody said life was easy. If it was easy, it wouldn't be life. right? How do you know good times if you don't know bad times? And I like bad times because that's how you test people, your friends, your business partners, everybody. Everything goes up and down. Nothing is just an easy path. So, when you hit a downslope and people abandon you, like insurance companies, when you have a claim and they cancel you, now you know, right? That's my favorite. People come to me and they tell me their bullshit story, and I'm like, well, now I know. That's all I needed to know. You've worked for me for 5 years, or you've been my insured for 5 years, and you've been feeding me with bullshit. And now here we are, and you're not the partner I thought you were. I don't care, right? I'm just glad to know who you really are. And that's what life really comes down to, is when the going gets tough, do you run? And that was on the playground. We all learned that on the playground. You had friends that would fight with you and friends that you thought would fight with you and they run. So I learned everything I needed on the playground and in sports. And common sense is the most undervalued thing, right? You go get an education and the education tells you all this stuff that doesn't make sense. And that's why I challenged everything in the insurance business. I'm like, that doesn't make sense to me, right? The way it is all done is stupid. And
so let me take you back to the kids real quick. So that kid flailing out in the field, right? I'm the same way. My wife's gonna hear this and say, oh, he's much. Shut the fuck up and do it, because this is life or death, right? And in America, we're so spoiled. We have everything at our fingertips, everything. And we forget what the struggle is. And you're gonna give that kid trauma. Like, where did all of this bullshit come from versus I call you John Dutton, right? Versus like that John Dutton hardened mentality where like, okay, maybe you're giving your kids some type of emotional trauma, but you're making them tough to be able to survive in this world. Where did we all flip this? Where did it all go wrong?
The people who did it, like Ford, who created Ford Motor, they went through mental trauma, right? So if you push your kids, is that really mental trauma?
That's what they call it. That's what they want to categorize
Yeah, that's
it as,
bullshit,
right? Yeah, it's bullshit.
Right? To me, that's just making your kids be as strong as a pioneer, which is survival, right? And so as I heard you talking about it earlier with other people, you build a business and then you pass it on, and then you pass it on. And every generation has a better opportunity to take that to the next level. How many companies actually do that?
It's very rare that it gets even to the second generation, almost never to the third.
Right.
And I'm not saying there hasn't been some that has gone to fourth and fifth, but
whose fault is that?
I think
the kids missed the opportunity, but the parents did something wrong, right? And again, we all have our own challenges. My kids, I got 3 boys. They're all awesome dudes, but are they as tough as they should be? I don't think so, right? And so when you grow up and your parents have fought for stuff, will you fight for that same thing? And so when I write insurance for some of my best guys I've insured for 40 years, and we've been through big lawsuits, been to Supreme Courts, and big challenges that are high pressure, you build a relationship there, right? And you get more confident because you have a good team, just like a Super Bowl team. And so, your kids not going through that doesn't give them the same experience to be able to carry the ball the way you do. But I still think, the opportunity is, and when I get too critical of my kids, they're all under 35, right? When I was 35, I was pretty stupid too. Mm-hmm. I thought the insurance world was stupid and they didn't know what they were doing. I was right, by the way. And now I know they're stupid. So, when you're 35, you only have so much experience, and you have, your own gut feeling, and I would say common sense, and your own gut instinct, or what you should listen to. And then, I think you go talk to smarter people more educated people, lawyers, actuaries, people who ran insurance companies. And you should question them more than you question anybody. Because when you ask them, why do we do it that way? Well, that's the way we've always done it. And anytime I hear that answer, that's the way we've always done it, I'm like, that's probably a good reason to do it differently now. Because people get fat and lazy, right? And they think they're great. Well, there's 100 guys chasing you, right? Whether you're a football player, you're the best quarterback, how long is that going to last? How many people want to take your job?
A lot.
So if you're not still hungry and aggressive and wanting to make it better, what's our purpose here on earth, right? What are we here to be? By summing up, we're here to be the best we can be. And that's what I tell my kids. I don't care what you choose to do. You want to be a school teacher? Be the best fucking school teacher in the world. Because when I look back at school, there were a couple of school teachers who stand out, who encouraged me and made me better. Majority of them, they weren't, right? They're writing the assignment on the board. They could give a shit. They communicated that to you. And, as a kid, you're perceptive. You're more like a dog as a kid, right? I love dogs because they don't talk and they watch everything, right? They know what you're doing. If you're taking them to the vet, they know it before they're going to the vet because of them watching you. And so, watching people and being perceptive and not ignoring those,
Signs.
clues that are coming at you, right? Everybody sends messages, and dogs are way better at judging people than people are at judging people.
Absolutely. So you got into the insurance business once you got out of school. Was your dad still in it?
Yeah. So he owned an MGA, it's a wholesaler. So they don't deal with clients or buyers. They deal with agents who can't get from their normal companies what they need. So they go to a wholesaler. And, he wrote the Evel Knievel Jump, and he kind of did the specialty stuff that nobody would. I mean, my first couple of years, I traveled with an older gentleman called Mel. We had a trailer, an Oldsmobile 88, and we would drive 11 western states, Pocatello, Idaho. We'd have a agent show. The agents would come. We'd give them dinner. We had a slideshow. Then we'd tell them we could do all this stuff. We can write your oil drillers. We can write your oil trucks. We can write your outfitters and guides. And so we basically had 11 or 12 markets that we could submit stuff to. Sometimes they'd do it. Sometimes they wouldn't. So, within 5 years, I said to my dad, look, why are we asking other people to do shit? Right? I'd do it. We ought to form our own insurance company, and then we don't have to go ask other people to do it. So very early on, I wanted my own insurance company.
What did your dad say to that at the time?
He wasn't interested.
Why?
Because they have to take risk, right? He didn't want to take any risk. They want to just be a service provider where you collect fees and you always make money. So, again, everybody gets to make their own decisions, but I knew that being the decision maker, I could have more power, right? Lawyers, right? When we had a death case in California, I said, we should fight this. And I did fight it, and I took it to the Supreme Court in California and won. It's called Saines versus Whitewater Voyages, which is the lead case on recreation and release forms nationwide, and it still stands today. So, but I had to fight to get the lawyers to do what I wanted. So in the business as a producer, you're begging insurance companies to do the right thing. So you're arguing with underwriters, and I always thought they were stupid, right? I would risk my own money and they won't do it. Then on the claims side, you're arguing with lawyers. And as a kid with no college degree, I'm fucking worthless, right? So I said, if I'm the insurance company owner, They have to listen
They
to
have
me.
to deal with you.
And, you know, they don't have to listen to you, because when I hire a lawyer, if I insure you and I hire a lawyer, he's your lawyer. I'm just paying the bill. And that's eventually what they said to me when I owned the company. They're like, Rick, you don't get to tell me what to do. I represent the insured, and I'm going to tell him to pay this claim. So now before I write people, I tell them, look, this is so simple, right? When you have an accident, the lawyers are going to want to bill us for 3 years and make a bunch of money, and then they're going to tell you to settle. So what I want to do is agree with you right now that if you have a claim within a very short period of time, 30 days, you're going to tell me whether you're at fault or not. Right? Helicopter ski guide, rafting guide, they know what they think. Trucking company. If you don't think you were at fault, I got you. And our plan is we go to war. We do not settle. And every time we go to a settlement conference, because any lawsuit, you have to go to settlement conferences, we have to play our role and do our job, which is we're not going to pay you. Right? If we were wrong, we would just pay you. But this is frivolous, and we're never going to pay you. And so, you know, as an insured, you're going to say, I'm not at fault, and I'm going to spend $300,000, and then this lawyer I'm paying for is going to tell you to settle. And I'm like, Ryan, what are you doing? We're not settling. We already decided this 3 years ago. And you would say to me, well, Rick, your lawyer says we should settle. And I'm like, dude, he ain't my fucking lawyer.
Yeah.
He's your lawyer.
He's
I'm
a
paying
lawyer.
the bill. And I told you this was going to happen. So you have to run the play we decided to run when we formed the team. If we're going to the Super Bowl, we have a go-to play on the 1 yard line in the Super Bowl. We got the team, we got the play. You don't change the play at the end. And if you do, you're going to cost us more money. We're going to lose the Super Bowl. So, you know,
Now, when
to
you started
me,
to think this way, you know, how old were you when you started to say, hey, obviously you were telling your dad we should be the insurance company. At what stage did you go and actually make that happen? How old were you?
well, from 25 to 35, we wrote for a company called Homestead. And we had the pen and we had the power, and I knew the owner, and he let me do what I want, which is how I got the Supreme Court case won, which every lawyer told me I was going to lose. They told me I was an idiot. They're no good. Well, I proved them wrong. And now I've been proving them wrong for 40 years, right? We win cases all the flipping time. I've never had a lawyer say, we should fight this. I don't believe a lawyer is ever going to say that. That's your job as the business owner and me. And if you didn't buy insurance, you would already be making the right decision, right? Because you would understand, well, if I pay this claim that's bullshit, I'm going to get more lawsuits. Mm-hmm. But when you pass it off to an insurance company, you think that, oh, they're going to handle it and it's not going to affect me. Insurance companies basically outsource everything now. So they aren't the decision maker, right? They hire lawyers or adjusters or other people. They give them a report, and then they make a decision based on that report. And if you didn't see it, you should go see the 60 Minutes piece on the homeowner in Florida. He has a home in Florida. It's damaged by the storm. He needs $350,000 to fix his house. Insurance company sends out an adjuster. 6 months later, they tell him, we're going to give you $13,000. And he needs $350,000. So he's now suing the insurance company. It's on 60 Minutes. He's driving his lawnmower around, mowing his lawn in a house he can't live in, and he's still paying the mortgage payment. And so, you know, again, he bought cheap insurance that didn't plan on him ever having a claim. And when you have the claim, they come out with an adjuster and they re-underwrite the risk. Right? If they would have done their job to begin with and underwritten it, they would have just written you a check for $350,000. But the adjuster comes and says, oh, your roof was old, right? We ain't paying for the roof. And you have a deductible of 10% on a storm, so that's your number. And so you give you're insured an answer he can't live with. And that's why litigation in Florida on homeowners is rampant, right? If you go read the newspapers, everybody sues their insurance company and they go broke after every storm. And this has been going on for 100 years, right? I learned it in Katrina. I insured people in Katrina, and I sent out adjusters and they measured. Guess what they do? They measure wrong. So now my rule is do not go re-underwrite. Do not measure. We should already have the measurement. So when you go measure and you're off 1 inch, you know what the plaintiff's lawyers say? You insure 100,000 homes down here. If you're off 1 inch on all 100,000 homes, how much are you saving? Right? So they think it's a scheme to not pay your claims, and I agree with them. Right? The guys couldn't measure. I don't think it was a scheme. They just fucking can't measure. Mm-hmm. So why would I send you out to measure when your measurements hurt me? Yep. Right? And if you have an old roof, I should tell you that when I take your money. And I shouldn't take your money and hope there's no storm. And then when there's a storm, I say, oh, your roof's 20 years old. I'm not paying you for your roof, which is the most expensive thing on a house.
Now, these are things that obviously majority of Americans don't think about. They go get the insurance, they're covered, their mortgage company's happy, and you call it a day. Obviously, you've been at this for a long time, and you have thought deeply about it. So, again, at what phase did you go buy a prime insurance? We were talking earlier, you had the best board that you couldn't even buy at the time when you went and did all that.
Well, I inherited the board because they had started an insurance company to do it the old-fashioned way. And
talk about that, because I think it's important for people to hear.
They had lost $18 million of their $20 million, so when I took over, they had $2 million left.
And who were some of these people? There were some prominent people.
Well, John Orb was chairman emeritus of Smith Barney. Duke Chapman was general counsel of the New York Stock Exchange. I mean, Sandy McNally, his grandparents owned Rand McNally.
Yeah, these are big-time
people. Yeah, no, they're Chicago and New York investment bankers, and they're all in their 70s, 80s, and 90s retired, and, you know, they don't care. But they don't want to lose, right? So they were losing, and they let me take over the company. And again,
How did that come about, though?
I had an offering document that I was sending out all over the world to try and get capital to start a new company, and they got a copy of it. And an investment banker they had hired, Pat DeLacy, got a copy of it, and he called me up and introduced me to him. And, you know, it was a godsend for me. And looking back, I was stupid because I took over a sinking ship. If I'd have raised new money, I'd have had a clean ship to go sail with, but I had to repair the ship before I could go sailing.
But
so
you also got the wisdom of a ton of very successful
and it
men.
was, you know, and again, I couldn't have got a better board. And so in 2008, when the world crashed because of the real estate, they wanted to sell their interest, and we got offers, and I offered them more than the offers, and I had to pay him over 3 years, so they had to trust me on being able to pay him in 2008, 2009, and 2010, which was really bad times. And I paid him 8% interest, which at the time was
high.
Yeah, I mean, at the time it was 0, I think, was the interest rate. So, you know, they were concerned, how can you pay this? Are you sure you can pay it? And I did, and the 3 years, 2008, 2009, 2010 was like when we took off. That was when we breached the dam, and the model actually was useful to a lot of people. And I grew probably to 40 million, so I could, you know, pay the obligation. And I went from owning 5% to 82% of the company. So anyway, it's, you know, it was the best way for me to get into it. And at the time I thought, you know, I would be better off just having new capital, right? No hair, but I learned from it, right? And I had a board and partners that I had a relationship with, and they supported me.
And they didn't have to sell to you either.
Yeah, and most people wouldn't have. It was the relationship. And I think life is all about relationships and partnerships. You know, a good partner is unbelievable. A bad partner is so bad that, you know, you wonder why you would do anything with a bad partner. But when you're young, you want to do shit.
Yeah, you want to get going.
And you're willing to take risks hoping that it's going to work out. And I would say that's what insurance companies do, right? They write, and they don't write in this area, and they hope they don't have a claim. How about thinking, no, our job is to perform when the claim does happen that we can't predict. Like, you know, in California, all those wildfires, the companies that insured them should go write them a check. That isn't going to happen because it's really screwed up. The biggest issue is when you have a $10 million house, they give you $5 million of contents. And I was with State Farm, and house was $5 million. They give me 2.5 of contents. I'm like, I don't have 2.5 of contents. I got like $500,000. Well, you'd get 2.5. So, you know, that's worked for them forever. But now in California, they're all going to get sued, and guess what they're going to demand? The 2.5. And the lawyers are going to argue, why would you put a number on their policy that you know you're never going to have to pay, right? This was destroyed. We want the 5 million, the 2.5, and the company thought, well, it's never going to be 2.5. They're going to have a hard time proving $500,000, and most of it's going to be old furniture, so we can depreciate it and we'll only pay 200. Well, now in California, that ain't going to work. Now the lawyers have the advantage, because why would you give somebody a limit that you're never going to pay? That's dishonest. That's disingenuous, right? So, again, insurance companies create cans of corn.
Yeah,
right?
obviously,
it's cookie cutter.
As people watch this, they're going to see your passion and knowledge on this. But I want to give nuggets to people too. Like, you bit off more than you could chew. We talked about this earlier. Like, the people who have fear of failure, it's putting themselves in that corner and having that pressure and then learning to perform under it. So you had to go in 08, 09, 2010, go pay these guys a payment on top of trying to spend money to grow a business, right? Like, talk about what goes through your mind, and then teaching someone who's younger watching this, like, what it takes. And I know it's, you know, a lot of times it's sheer balls, you know, no risks, no biscuit. But talk about the mental side of doing that, right? You were going into something that was bigger than you ever did, right, with guys that were pretty powerful.
Well, the biggest nightmare for me was Katrina, because I was small and I'd done it, you know, the way that the old system did it. I'd never written property insurance before.
Watch yourself.
And, you know, to me, it became very obvious then that you can't do half the job, right? If you take somebody's money, again, it'd be like, okay, I'm going to build half of this fire pit for you, and then I'm going to quit, and you got to have somebody else. That's never going to work out, no, right? You have to do the whole job. And even in construction, you know, you got a framer, you got an electrician, but the general is the one that's making sure it all comes together. And so, you know, Katrina was definitely the biggest challenge I've ever been through, and the closest I ever came to failing. And I could have laid down and failed, but again, I learned from it.
How long was that period of feeling like you were laying down? You were potentially near laying down and failing?
I mean, you know,
6 months, is a year?
No, fuck no. Litigation and storms and insurance, it's like 3 to 5 years is the shortest. You know, if you write a policy and they have a claim, it ain't going to settle in 6 months. It's longer than that. It's 3 to fucking 10 years sometimes. So, you know, and again, sometimes some of my biggest successes are when you lose $10 million, you know, most people just give up, cancel, and run away. I learned from it, and I keep going at it, and I learned from it, and I improve myself. But, you know, there's insurance companies out there where insureds lie, cheat, and steal, right, to get what they want, and then you just cancel them and you move on, right? I have 3 insureds right now that owe me $10 million, and it'll take me 3 to 5 years to get it. So the numbers, the actuaries, all the regulators are saying, you lost $30 million last year. And I'm like, well, that's like a snapshot in time, right? I will get 20 million of that back. On my best day, I'll get all 30 million back, because when I insure these guys, they sign a personal guarantee, right? I had a call today and they're like, we can't sign a personal guarantee. And I'm like, so you're telling me you're going to rip me off right now? Because before you go bankrupt, you can pay your premium, or you cannot pay your premium, and then I can't cancel you immediately. I have like 45 days that I'm still on you. So, crooks in the trucking business or in any business can stop paying all their bills and live for another 45, 90 days and collect
carriers.
Money and just claim bankruptcy and leave you high and dry. So me asking them to sign a personal guarantee, they're like, I don't sign personal guarantees. I'm like, well, I do. Because if I make a deal with you, I'm going to pay you, right? I'm not going to screw you and hide behind bankruptcy. And if you want to screw other people and hide behind bankruptcy, before you claim bankruptcy, you can fucking pay me.
Yeah.
Right? And when you don't pay me as an insurance company, guess what? It doesn't matter to anybody in the world. It's like I print a policy and it's like dollar bills. I have to pay whether you pay me or not. So people say, I can't pay the payment, give me another 30 days. And I've been burned by that so many times that most people say, I don't do that anymore. But 80% of the people will live up to their commitment if you have a personal relationship with them. If there's an agent and a wholesaler and I've never talked to you, you can screw me a lot easier.
You don't care.
But, my guys will say, why do you want them to send you a personal email? I'm like, because I know them and I want them to commit to me what they're going to do, right? And if they won't do that, then the answer is no. So, again, I could be like everybody else and say, I'm not doing that anymore. But there's 80% of the people that you should do it for, because they're good people and they need a good partner. And so I still do it, but the 20% that I don't feel comfortable with or that have screwed me prior, I say, look, your track record speaks louder than your words. Yeah. And you've heard it a million times. It's on all the social media. Actions speak louder than your words. Everybody talks a good story. How many people actually do what they're going to say?
Well, you're like the dog. You're sitting there watching people, and you're old school, and It's about a handshake and a personal relationship. And if you tell me you're going to do something and you don't, I'm going to remember that. I want to take a quick break, and I want to get back into a little bit of, what makes you different versus other insurance carriers, and really kind of break that down in digestible bites. And then I want to talk about the brand, XINSURANCE, and what you did, kind of marrying that to Prime.
Okay.
We'll come back in a minute. So, Rick, I want to take your years of experience in insurance, and I want you to simplify what makes Prime Insurance and XINSURANCE different than something you're going to go get at Farmers or State Farm. Kind of help people understand that you go in, like you are a real person, obviously a large entity as well, and you're going to go take a percentage of the risk in the game with them, which is much different than all of these clauses on traditional policies that take out almost everything out of the policy and make you believe that you have insurance. Can you explain that in a simplified way?
Well, the way I explain it is insurance companies create cans of corn, right? They design a product. They design it for years, right? So I'm dealing with a guy in California that worked for a big company, good hands, and they were going to do, big homes in California, and they scrapped it after a year of going to come out with this program. So they think about it very long, and they're trying to create a policy that's to their benefit. Right? They're not designing a policy for us, for buyers. So again, I look at everything in life like if you and me are in a deal, I think most people think I win if I screw you, if I get a good price, right? How about we both win? How about we do a deal that's fair? So instead of creating cans of corn, I say, they're giving you a policy, right? And then they read the fine print and you get disappointed. Surprise, this isn't covered. Here's the fine print. Do you want a policy or do you want a partner? And in life, partners are way better than a piece of paper. So, I issue a piece of paper just like the other guys do, but it's not pre-canned. It's not like going into, Nordstrom's and buying suits off the rack, right? You go to a haberdasher, which I didn't know what it was till I met some guys at RLI. That's a tailor who custom fits suits. And in today's world, with how complicated it is and business and personal crosses over, you need a customized policy, just like I do. All right, I take people on my four-wheelers. If I insure a four-wheeler, it's a personal policy, excludes business. So when I take people out and we go four-wheeling and it's business, I don't have any coverage. That's stupid.
And most people aren't really aware that that happens.
And most people don't care. So I tell buyers, insurance companies are crooks, right? And you've never had a choice to have a partner before. They're offering you something that if you use, it's going to go away.
We'll
That's
use the
fake.
example we talked about earlier. I don't know if you could talk about the celebrity's name, but we talked about a $4 million deductible, and it's on a $30 or $40 million home. And if they have a $4 million claim, she's
Pays
out
the
of
whole
pocket
thing.
$4 million, right?
Right.
Well, you're saying, hey, I'll maybe go in on that $2 million and $2 million.
Well, deductibles are evil, right? Because they separate us, right? So a policy is evil because it gives you a $4 million deductible. Well, why is it $4 million? Well, because insurance companies know if you have a $40 million house, more than likely all your claims are going to be under $4 million. So they're creating a can of corn that they got to take your money, but you got to pay your own claim. So I'm telling all insurance companies that as an industry, everybody will benefit and the lawyers will lose if we get rid of deductibles. All right, so instead of you paying $4 million because you have a $4 million deductible, I said to this famous person, and I do a lot of them, I insure Drake and all kinds of people. So, $4 million deductible doesn't do you any good, right? I'm designing it to my benefit. So deductibles are gone and we share risk. So with Jessica Simpson, right, she had a $4 million deductible. I said, right now, you'll pay $4 million, right? Under me, if you have a $4 million claim, you'll pay $2 million and I'll pay $2 million. So our interests are aligned. Right? If you have a $4 million deductible on a $40 million house, the roofer shows up and he says, so who you with? And he's already doing math in his head. What's your deductible? Why does he care what your deductible is? And it started at body shops when you take your car into the body shop. What's your deductible? Why do you want to know my deductible? I'm going to help you out.
Yeah, I'll give you
I'm
back
going to
some money.
build it into, I'll help you out. So we're going to screw the insurance company. So what fundamentals of the insurance business are so old and outdated that they get abused by smart people, lawyers, who know where the pain points are? So again, to me, risk sharing is, if everybody in the insurance business would do it, and again, everybody says, what's your secret sauce? Hard work and common sense, right? Just be fair with people. I don't want you insuring me and giving me a $4 million deductible. Give me risk share, right? Don't exclude the stuff that can happen to me. Cover me.
And you spoke earlier too, and you talked about, hey, claims could take, 3 to 10 years. in most cases, when you see the logical thing happen, you're showing up to them within a week and stroking them a check.
Yeah.
You're not playing that game of trying to beat them out of their money. Now, I know you had people that have tried to do that wrongfully to you, and then you obviously go and fight them and you'll take it to the highest court in the land.
Right.
But when you see something very black and white happened, you're going and writing a check right there and then within a couple weeks.
In Maui, when the fires happened there,
Trevor, get rid of those dogs.
when the fires happened in Maui, the people were on TV and they said, "Where's the government?" Right? And I'm sitting there thinking, where's your insurance company?
And they all have like 10, 15, $20 million homes.
They should come write you a check. They took your money, right? But they're going to send out an adjuster and they're going to tell you, disappointing news. You're not going to get what you need. So everybody's looking to the government. What does the government do well?
Fuck shit up.
Right. The government should stay out of the insurance business, and they should tell the insurers, look, if you insure homeowners in the United States of America, you need to be fucking great, right? This is the foundation of our country, home ownership. That's what most people's most valuable asset is, and you're screwing with their retirement plan and their whole life plan. They pay off their house. They get to a point, they buy insurance, and then a storm comes and they can't repair it. That's called underwriting, right? Underwriting to me is fixing what can happen when it does happen. Insurers try and craft a policy where it's to their advantage. Deductibles. Do you think a deductible aligns our interests? If you have a $50,000 deductible, you're not going to report anything that you think's under 50 grand.
Yep.
And a lot of claims that you think are small, you start ripping the boards away, or the lawsuit gets bigger, and then it's a bigger claim, and then you report it late. You know what insurance companies do when you report a claim late? They deny it.
Yeah, have a nice day.
And lawyers get rich. So, again, when people try and tell me, lawyers are the ones who come to mind, you don't understand the legal system. I'm like, common sense tells me what you're telling me isn't right? You think your education is going to overpower common sense with me, and I would tell you that's what Trump does, right? Trump, if he loses at the lower court, he appeals and he wins. So, you need a partner who your interests are aligned, and they're going to fight with you. They're not going to run for the hills like fake Jake, who, insures your home, and then when it burns down, they cancel everybody and run for the hills.
He's run away in his khakis.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a good neighbor, you stay and fight for your insured. On your worst day, I would say, Ryan, I got to double your premium, right? Because wildfires are rampant and you don't control the forest around your house, right? Everybody in California now is a better risk than they've ever been. Why? Because cheap insurance went away. So when you offer people fake cheap insurance and everybody goes to sleep and then catastrophe happens, what did you expect? But buyers they have a role in this too, right? Cheap is cheap, right? Guys I insure with $40 million houses, they want cheap insurance. I'm like, you drive $1 million Ferrari. You wear Rolexes and Breitling watches, dude, but you want cheap insurance.
Yeah.
To me, I'm just like, that's bullshit.
They don't want to value it. It's very funny. We insure a lot of things in our life. Most importantly, I think your income and your life is the biggest thing you should insure, especially in my business. But, when it comes to insurance, it's like it's never going to happen to me. So it's like this check that you just hate writing. But again, if I were to lose out on this asset that I purchased this year, it would be a pretty significant hit to my balance sheet as I'm trying to grow my business as a young guy.
Right.
I can't afford to lose all of that, so I'm going to go make sure that I have the proper amount of insurance, and you and I have been talking, make sure that I'm set up right and this thing can be replaced because it's a valuable asset, especially where the price point I bought it at. And I think most people need to start thinking about that way. Talk about the guy in Bayhead. Mark Henderson was sitting inside, talking about his parents' house and what happened to them.
Right.
So you could have $5 million that your advisor's sitting there and help you accumulate. So now you got $5 million, but it's $5 million to replace that house in Bayhead after Sandy.
Right.
and no one sat there and helped you assess that risk. That $5 million you were chasing that rate of return with is instantly wiped out by something that you didn't see coming, that bridge that was out ahead. There's no known outcomes in your world.
Right. So what I like to do is mock claims. It's like, okay, somebody sues you for $10 million, or a tornado wipes out your house, or a mudslide, ruins your garage. How does your insurance respond to that? All you have to do is read the fucking policy. Because when they assign an adjuster, that's what he does. He comes with his clipboard, writes down all his notes, asks all these questions. He goes back and he reads the policy, and he's like, yeah, we only pay $10,000 for that. Well, if the cleanup's $20,000 and they limit it to 10, who gets to pay the other amount?
Yeah.
If flood isn't covered, it's all on you. You get to pay. So a policy is going to narrow your payment, right? It's going to leave you with less than what you thought. A partnership, if you do it right? And again, my deal is, you said, I want to insure this for $100 a square foot. I'd say, see ya. Right? We can't rebuild it for $100 a square foot. Most people call you up and say, I paid $3 million for my house. I'm like, that has nothing to do with what you insure it for.
Yeah, what's the replacement
The
value?
land is it can't be damaged. So we're talking about building a structure, and what is the, per square foot rate that you're going to have to pay a contractor. And in a storm or a catastrophe, the price is going to go up. Shouldn't insurance companies know that and be ahead of the ball?
You said this earlier, and I thought it was a great point, and I'm going to take us off track a little bit, but you said, hey, look how great Doge is working inside the government. Imagine they went and did that in insurance companies. Yeah. Like, how corrupt and just out of whack are they really?
I mean, look at the banks in 2008, right? I mean,
Lehman gone.
I remember sitting there in Utah thinking, this can't be real. This is all going to crash, right? And they're like, oh no, we got it figured out, and home ownership, and everybody's going and leveraging themselves, buying shit they can't afford because they don't think of what could happen, right? Then what could happen does happen, and the world falls apart. And they're all the smart guys, right? They're the bankers who we go to for loans and put our money in, and obviously they don't know what the hell they're doing, or we wouldn't have had cacophony in 2008.
They're chasing money, greed.
Yeah, so anyway, the insurance companies have been evolving since the 50s, right? And instead of new ideas, they've evolved in a way that's to their benefit. Increased deductibles, increased rates. That doesn't help the insured. That doesn't help fix the problem. So again, fundamentally, I think deductibles should be illegal. They separate our interests. If you pay 1% of every claim and I pay 99% of every claim, you'll report it, right?
Most people don't even want to put in a claim because then they feel they can't even go get another insurance contract.
No, they know they'll get canceled, which is that's how I trap everybody. I'm like, why don't you report your claims? It's like, because I'll get canceled. I'm like, oh, so you have shitty insurance.
They do it, again, in my opinion, I think they do it just sheerly for the mortgage.
Yeah. And most people say, look, I'm never going to have a claim, right? I used to say that when I was young too, right? When you get old like me, believe me, you have fucking claims. And you're paying a premium to have claims.
Yeah.
Right? If they cancel you after you make a claim, it's like, oh, so my premium, you never planned on me having a claim? I thought that's why I paid you premium. Mm-hmm. It's like hiring a lawyer on retainer. Would you be afraid to call a lawyer that you'd paid $10,000 to be able to call him anytime? Hell no. You're going to start calling him when you need him. So insurance is like hiring a lawyer on retainer, but everybody knows it's such a shitty product that they don't want to use it. Mm-hmm. I only use it when I absolutely have to because I know my world's going to explode.
Yeah, they don't want to deal with it.
So, again, buyers have a role in all of this. I would say their only excuse is they're all the same. You can go from Travelers to Jake at State Farm, to Allstate. They all kind of have the same cookie cutter approach, right? It's $1 here, $1 there, and a little bit here. who's actually your partner that if you make a claim is going to stick with you. All my people have claims, right? The people who come to me, the helicopter ski guides, the river guides, the homeowners, the trucking companies, they come to me because they had a claim and they've been shunned by the regular market. So it's like a fresh start, and they appreciate me. If I try and go to you who've never had a claim, you're 33 years old, I'm never going to have a claim, it's just a piece of paper. Like, I don't want to even do business with you, right? Eventually, you'll have a claim, and then you'll end up on my doorstep, and you'll be a better potential client for me. But you can't make everybody happy.
So I would say that you're a disruptor, and you're on the cutting edge of probably redesigning the whole entire insurance industry. And
I call it revolutionizing, but I used to feel stupid saying that. People called me disruptors 5-10 years ago. I was like, no, I'm not. No, I definitely am a disruptor. I think the whole system is so wrong.
Yeah, but you're doing it also from a point of like, this is the right thing to do. Not that you don't want to make money. Of course you're here to make money.
Everybody has to make money.
Yeah, but you're doing the right thing still. And the right thing is telling people to swallow this medicine that they may not fucking like, but it's the right thing. It's the truth.
It's value, right? If I actually perform when the other guys don't, that's why you buy a Ferrari or a Breitling watch, because you want it the best, right? But everybody, insurance is like, it's all the same, right? They're all fucking crooks. So I just buy the cheapest thing and I hope for the best. And,
And that's so true.
I think they now have a choice. And it's because, as an agent, I got frustrated with companies, how stupid they were. And I thought, these guys are stupid, right? If you do it right, it can be successful. My goal was to be a $100 million company, and I'm a $500 million now. And I think I'm going to be larger than that over the next 10 years because, you're young enough where you watched Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, and they had the Land of the Misfit Toys with Cornelius, the gold hunter, gold
that's my crew.
Prospector. So I insured the Land of the Misfit Toys, and I tell you, they're the best partners on the planet because once you're labeled as uninsurable or you're high risk or we won't insure you, people take that personally. It's like, no, I'm not. And risk is relative. Helicopter skiing is safer than driving down the highway here, right? But insurers are like, oh, that's high risk. It's not. It's not a big business, right? There's probably 12 helicopter ski companies in the U.S., maybe 20. So it's not big dollars where big insurance companies are going to get excited about it. One of my guys, I've
Not
insured.
enough volume there for them.
Yeah, they want, hundreds of millions of premium. And again, size doesn't matter. One of my employees quit because when agents or brokers talk to you, they say, what's your appetite, right? What do you like? What's your size appetite? And I'm like, look, I'm going to sound like a girl here. Size doesn't matter. I just want to do it the right way. And my one employee said, you got to quit saying that. And it was a girl. She says, that's just wrong to say that. I'm like, well, I think it gets a lot of laughs, so I'm going to keep saying it. But she actually quit because of that, which ended up being good in the long run. She's better off where she's at.
So talk about quickly, like the line. So obviously you're doing things like hunts. You're insuring a guy right now, you were talking about that was doing something with self-defense training. Obviously you're working in the race boat community with some of the stuff that they do. Trucking, towing.
We do security guards. We do dog bite. Your dogs probably aren't covered on your homeowners anymore. Mm-hmm. So we get a lot of people that, we cover the stuff that they need that they don't have. And I always try and I tell them, look, I'll insure what they don't want, but that's not my preference. I would rather do you a package that covers everything all in one like I have. So people hate insurance. I don't know how many insurance checks you write a year, but when I used to be with Jake at State Farm, every time I'd go home, I'd have another insurance bill. So you're writing bills all the time. And, you know, as a consumer, I'm like, they think I'm just here to write them checks. Mm-hmm. So, you know, I now write all my own stuff. One policy, I write one check a year. Covers all my ATVs, all my snowmobiles, all my toys, my house, my condos. And, you know, as the insurance company, I have a house in Utah, condo in Florida, place in Key West. That's a spread of risk.
Chicago.
So I'm a better risk because I have a spread, right? Insurance companies like writing individual policies. And again, my strategy is I insure people. I don't insure houses. I insure you, and whatever you have, we customize a policy around you, and you write one check a year. More policy you have, the more you're getting ripped off, because everybody's taking what they want from you, and the gaps between those policies. Yeah, it's like, we'll insure your hotel, but we don't want the liquor, so you got to go buy liquor.
We don't want the pool.
Yeah, I mean, so you really don't want to insure me unless you can clean me up.
Yeah.
Right?
Take out the highest risk things.
Yeah, that's bullshit.
So, obviously, I think you did a really good job of showing the difference between traditional insurance and what X and Prime Insurance do. I want to talk about X Insurance and what you're doing with the content with your son Parker. He does an excellent job. He's a great visionary, and that's bringing a lot of eyes to you. For the young people out there that are looking to market themselves, whatever business it is, talk about why that does help you continue to get your name out there, your company's name out there, and your agent's name out there.
Well, I mean, I think, you know, we're in a very old traditional business, insurance, right? And so how do you revolutionize it or get people to at least recognize you, right? And so the old days, TV, you had 3 stations, you'd had to do TV commercials, and you know, it was really limited. Now it's a lot more opportunities, right? And so anybody that you can catch their eye is now interested in you. That's all advertising is, right? Jake at State Farm, right? Good Neighbor and Patrick Mahomes, and they spend who knows how much money to try and market themselves as a good neighbor, right? Then when you deal with them, they ain't a good neighbor. So,
and they ain't there.
To me, you know, the internet and all of this social media stuff is like magazines and TV ads, and so it's the same. You're trying to create an image, and boat racing and helicopter skiing and all the stuff that, you know, I've done years ago. When I was young, probably like 25, I got a hold of Jeep because they did all these cool commercials. And I'm like, you know, you guys are paying for this stuff. I can get you helicopter skiing and we can do this for free. Finally, I got to a guy in Jeep high enough. He's like, dude, people who drive Jeeps don't do that stuff. They drive around, you know, their city. They're not out in the dirt.
They're not actually beating it up.
Skiing. So we're not interested. So a lot of times advertising is, you know, for the show, right? But they're communicating to different people. So the key to advertising to me is people want to know, right? You create an image where they're like, hey, I mean, most people 5 years ago, they're like, what's X insurance, right? Now most people know what it is. Mm-hmm. But that took 5 years of the boat racing to do it. And, you know, again, I got lots of people telling me that I should be doing drag racing or NASCAR or regular TV ads and stuff. And I've been doing this a long time. I've tried it all, right? I've done ads during the Utah BYU football game, which is the big rivalry on, you know, the biggest TV stations. And you get more value out of the stuff I do. I get more value out of the stuff I do direct, the boat racing, you know, going to meetings, meeting people like this, and getting the word out. Because it really is educating them. First you hook them, and then you educate them. And then they have to make a decision. Do I want fake insurance, or do I want real insurance? And so, you know, there's no doubt that everybody likes to question what I'm doing. You're spending all kinds of money. There's no way you can get the value out of it. Well, I'm the best judge of that, right? And I've done it for 40 years. I go to conventions, go to meetings, and if it doesn't work, I don't do it anymore.
Yeah, you're not a guy that's going to keep spending money towards something that's not working.
Yeah, no, when it works, you keep going. And, the boat racing, again, everything's timing, right? 10 years ago, nobody in California would have bought homeowners from me. 5 years ago, the homeowners market went crazy in California. Now I can sell homeowners in California. So, because you have a good plan or a good product, you might be at the wrong time. But the insurance business is something that I think it's different than any other business. It's not like, most people want to see growth, right? The insurance business, if you go grow twice as big in it's shitty business, you're going to go bankrupt. So
it's also hard to show growth when you're selling insurance, right? So we talked about this earlier. Like I think it was you and I, the real estate agent. He goes out there and he sells a $3 million home, and then he sticks it right back in his customer's face that he's got 4% on that home, and the customer's already a little frustrated, right? They sold a $4 million home at 4%. That's a large commission on top of taxes and a new mansion tax that Murphy put in place here in Jersey. He's paying all these people fees for what? They did nothing. It was their home. They built it. They put the money into the landscaping. That's super frustrating.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So how are you doing that on your end of what you have going on?
Well, again, to me, real estate,
I'm saying when you're a business, though, in real estate, you can go and do that, and you could piss off your customers, and maybe that gets other people excited to buy houses from you. I think it's a really weird thing. I don't understand it. But in my world or your world, I can't go put out there, hey, I just rolled over this client's $10 million today. Or I just did a $500,000 life insurance premium with this client that's worth $70 million. The client's not going to appreciate that. I can't talk about it. Same thing in your world.
Right.
You can't really get out there and go, oh, I brought on $50 million of new premium this quarter.
Right.
So how you market yourself, I think you're doing in a very genius way.
Yeah. Again, to me, we're up 30% this year. And with what I've done this past year, everybody thought I was going to shrink. And I told them I'm happy to shrink, because if I don't do this, I'm not learning from my mistakes. So I'd rather be smaller and better than bigger and worse. Right? It's fundamentals. It's just everything is fundamentals. It's common sense. So do it right, or don't waste your time or your people's time. And, real estate, I've always had this relationship about real estate agents thinking they're like insurance agents where, they're overpaid. I mean, that's just what I think. Insurance agents make way too much money for what they do, right? They basically take an app and pass it on. Mm-hmm. And then when the premiums double, and you had a claim and you get canceled and your premium doubles, they make twice as much money.
Yeah, and
the insurance companies are like, these are bad risks, we're not writing them, and the insured's pissed off. Who's the beneficiary of it?
Yeah, the agent. He goes and sells you someone else.
They're always making more money. In the real estate market, at least the value of your house went up, and you benefited too, and they sell it again and they make more money, but it's a win for everybody, right? Unless the market goes down, and then that's something we're not in control of. Don't have to sell when the market goes down. Aid, I was in trouble and almost lost my house, but I was able to hang on to it. With real estate, if you don't go too far out on the limb, it will come back, right? Real estate, there's only so much of it, and, it's a timing thing, right? Insurance isn't a timing thing. It's, during your life, are you going to have claims? And when you're young, it's like, I'm never going to have a claim, which is what I used to say, right? I've had claims, right? I have claims right now that my insurance companies won't pay me. Right? As a big financial institution, we buy big policies from bigger insurance companies.
You're passing out the risks. It's reinsurance.
They're worse than the little guys, right? They don't pay their claims either. I have to sue them to pay me. Right, the one company, $6 million claim, they would have had to have paid it. I fought it and won, and it's a $2 million claim, and they say, you hired too many lawyers. We don't want, we're not paying all those legal bills. I'm like, I won, right? If I would have paid the $6 million, you'd had a $6 million claim. So I did my job, right? I represented myself and you, and I saved us both money, and you're complaining? So if I wouldn't have hired more lawyers and I would have lost, and you would have had to pay $6 million, would you pay the $6 million? I don't believe they would have paid the $6 million either. So, again, I'm very negative on the performance of insurance, right? Some of the guys here were talking about Porsches. So if you're a Porsche lover, if every Porsche broke down every time you went to drive it, you think anybody would love Porsches?
No.
I mean, you have to make happy customers. You have to actually perform when they push on the gas, when they go to start it.
How do you think that changes? Is it like a Trump guy comes in and just smashes these guys with massive fines and new regulations? Like, what turns it around?
That's never going to happen. It's like we were talking about the boat racing earlier, which, the teams are like the circus, right? We have the boats, we have the trucks, we bring the boats, so we have the power, right? Buyers have the power. So if you make good decisions, you have the power. If you make bad decisions, you give your power up to somebody else. So I tell buyers, look, you got to quit searching for cheap insurance, right? Everybody wants a cheaper price. 5 years ago in California, when everybody could get homeowners, if you can get me a cheaper price, I'll move. Cheaper than what? And what do you have?
Yeah.
Right? Nobody
Comparing
has any
apples and oranges,
situational awareness, right? It's like, well, let's look at how your policy would perform today. In an earthquake, you'd get 0. So how does that work for you, right? If you can get earthquake, how much is that worth to you? So, I told the story about the Rolling Stones earlier where I insured them and I talked with Keith and Mick and, they want me to give them a price, right? And insurance companies quote shit. So people are used to getting a price. Well, nobody would insure them. So I'm sitting there thinking, what am I going to charge them? And I was thinking somewhere between $250,000 and $750,000, right? And I was like, they're never going to pay $750,000. So then they get tired of waiting for me, and they said, we'll pay you $3 million. So a regular insurance company would have a rate chart, and they would give them the rate. So do I know the value of the insurance, or does the Rolling Stones know that it's worth $3 million for us if you'll issue this policy? So now I ask everybody that question. It's like, what's it worth to you? What do you want? What's the value to you? Because sometimes the buyer knows the value better than you do.
He knows exactly what it's going to cost to replace it.
Right. So
listen, you have a lot of wisdom. What I've enjoyed talking to you is, not everybody can geek out on insurance, right? It's a boring conversation. We're both in the insurance game. And we may geek out on it, but your wisdom that shows through in all your stories of business, lawsuits, employees, children, raising kids, what is like the one thing you would say of like, business and wisdom at this point in your life? Like, what's the one main thing of wisdom you would share with people that watch this?
I would say that question people that you think are smarter than you and use common sense, because whether it's doctors or lawyers or people that are smarter than me, when they start telling me I don't understand, they basically say you're too stupid to understand this. To me, that's like fake news, right? They're selling what they believe, but has anybody ever challenged them?
No, it's what they were taught in school.
When I won the case in California, went to the Supreme Court, every lawyer told me I was going to lose. When I got wrongfully arrested in Chicago and I wanted to sue the city, they said, you can't. Well, I did, and I won. So, when people tell you stuff where you're like, that can't be right, That common sense tells me that's
with
not
that
right
instinct.
in a fair country. And juries are something you should trust most of the time. Obviously, there's venues where,
They set up the jury.
well, the jury is, plaintiff orientated, but I would tell you that in most cases, the judges also tip the scale because they don't allow certain shit in. And in most cases, we have an appellate lawyer in court, right? And they're watching for shit we can appeal on. Because if we don't get treated right, just like Trump, I think that's the biggest thing I tell people about Trump, is he appealed, right? He didn't give up and lose. That's like the first inning of the baseball game, right? When you're right, you don't give up in the first inning. You stick to your, and again, if you want to give up and roll over all the time, that's one path. But I would rather die, go broke, whatever, doing the right thing than doing what everybody else is doing that's wrong.
Amen.
When I got arrested in Chicago with a felony, which was what I was charged with, I can't own an insurance company. So that was their lever, and they knew it, and they're giving me the misdemeanor, right? And I sitting there, and I said from day one, fuck you. I will never settle. I didn't do what they said. And people think you're crazy. He doesn't even think about it. Every night and every minute of my life, I'm thinking, am I dumb, right? Should I fucking change my way? But I present what I believe is right. And had I settled, right, and taken the misdemeanor, it would kill me today because I would wonder, could I have won, right? And if I would have settled, how would my life be different? Not knowing that you can win when people tell you can't. And so, again, I would have rather fucking been found guilty and gone to jail and lost my company than settled and admitted to what they wanted me to admit to that I didn't fucking do.
To fall into a charge.
Yeah, so, again, I think it's like the bully on the playground, right? They're gonna fucking scare you. And you should take a common sense, simple approach, which is, am I right or if I'm wrong? And if you're right, you always fight for what's right, even if it fucking kills you. If you fucking settle some bullshit case when you're right, you lose anyway. You're fucking giving it up. You're never gonna get to where you wanna go. So common sense is way more powerful than any education, along with experience, right? When I started Prime, I thought, this insurance business is stupid, right? I think I can do better, right? Now, I know it's stupid. There is no fucking question anymore. I'm too old to keep questioning myself. It's worked, and it's time to fucking go all in. And, I've always been all in, but everybody thinks I'm crazy. But you do question yourself.
Of course, because everybody else who's the herd mentality is coming at you with the herd mentality thought process, and you're the disruptor, you're the visionary, you're the person that's changing an industry. You're obviously going to question yourself. That wisdom was great. You continue to give it. Big Rick, John Dutton, I appreciate you. Thank you for being on. And we'll make sure we share all your social medias to XINSURANCE and Exports and everybody on your team. I appreciate you.
Well, no, I appreciate you guys, and it's a great little spot you got here, and you're doing good stuff, so keep it up. And
trying to catch you.
We're going to do some more stuff,
We're going to do some fun stuff, and I want people to stay tuned for that. Rick is a guy who has been able to work hard and build himself up a nice setup, and he's somebody who's looking to grow his business and find other like-minded people. And we're going to do some fun stuff that allow us to do that.
Yeah, I like doing these summits where, like this, we just hang out and go snowmobiling, go ATVing, go boating, come to the boat races, go golfing, whatever people want. So if you have people that say, hey, we got a problem, we want to go somewhere, let's hook them up, go have a good time. I do it all the time. Some of the people I never see again in life because they don't need me, right? But more and more people are in a position because the legal system grows. The lawyers are laughing at us all and winning because insurance companies and insureds are enemies, right? And the way we act proves it. So again, pick a partnership, not a policy. And it's same on the playground. Pick your friends, and life will be easier.
You're my friend, and we're gonna do some great things together. And I appreciate you very much.
Well, thanks.
Thank you.
You got a great